Welcome to this rapid revision video asking the question, how much progress was there in medieval medicine? We're going to be doing things just slightly differently with this video, and I'll be suggesting a way that you might want to revise this. If not, you can still get the content from it that you'll need. So first of all, let's consider what we mean by progress. This very simply means things advancing, things getting better. On the other hand, we have continuity, which means things staying the same, but not necessarily getting any worse. And then we have regress, things getting worse or going backwards, if you will. So think about the medieval period that we've looked at so far. Hopefully by this point you're actually quite familiar with it. Would you say that during the medieval period there's little change, some change, or massive change, either for the better or for the worse? Well, if you're deciding that there is little change, then really we're looking at continuity. And if you think there's massive change, well obviously things aren't staying the same, so there's got to be change. But you have to decide whether that change represents progress or whether it represents regress. So what examples would you give to illustrate this? Consider medieval medicine. Where on this scale would you place a mark to show the extent of progress? I'm not going to give an answer for that, but just have a think now. Hopefully you've made your mind up, so let's have a look at the ways in which you can assess this. Really, this is about factors for change. Change happens for a variety of reasons. The reasons that bring this about or affect it in some way are called factors. The ones that are particularly relevant to medieval medicine are the church, government. In the Middle Ages that would basically be the king and possibly his advisors, individual genius. Here we're looking at ancient examples such as Hippocrates and Galen, education or a lack of it, and lastly attitudes. For example, a respect for tradition or old ideas like Hippocrates and Galen. So we're going to be considering each of these factors for change and how they influence progress or a lack of it in medieval medicine. This is a suggestion for how you might want to revise this. Of course, you can just watch this and listen to the information if you prefer, but if you are looking to try out a new revision technique or maybe practice an old one, this could be it. You'll want to take 5 index cards. You can buy these fairly inexpensively from any stationery shops, or you could just simply make your own from regular bits of lined paper. But whatever you choose to do, take 5 index cards and on one side write down one of the factors that we've looked at, for example the church, and on the other side you'll need to use the information from these slides to build your knowledge. You'll need to include examples of how each factor meant that there was little change in medicine in the Middle Ages. Aim for 3 examples per card minimum. An explanation as to how much change or continuity this led to, and then an overall judgment about how important this factor is. It could be only a little bit important, it could be very important. And remember, importance doesn't necessarily mean that it created a lot of progress. It could be something that is important for reasons of continuity and keeping things the same. So we're about to have a look at our first topic. Take out your first card now and write on there the church. Now we'll have a look at the information. The Bible taught that God controlled all aspects of life, both good and bad. They used God to explain bad harvests and the death of animals, so believing God sent disease was also obvious to them. People believed that diseases were a punishment from God for their sins or God testing their faith. For example, the prior of Christ Church Abbey in 1348 said, God used suffering to dry out the numberless sins of the people. Think about the significance of the date there. That's the date that the Black Death arrived in England. The church also controlled education. The ideas used by physicians was based upon the work of ancients like Galen and Hippocrates. Not only did people not try to find new ideas, but the church encouraged them not to find any, and they could even persecute people or mistreat them, anyone who thought differently. They might even be accused of heresy, going against the teachings of God. So here we've got a brief summary of the impact of the church on medieval medicine. You can pause the video here and make your notes. Press play when you're ready to continue. Here's our next topic, government. You can write that down on your next card. The king was the head of the government in medieval England and was usually more preoccupied with war and taxation than with health. Most responsibility to do with medicine was left to the church. However, in times of crisis, the king may act by issuing writs or orders to local governors such as sheriffs. For example, quarantine rules were introduced in the Black Death. More locally, town and city councils ordered latrines to be built and issued fines for public health violations like polluting water and littering. Overall, though, government tended to react to events rather than try to plan for the future. So you can make your notes on this and decide whether it creates change, progress, regress, what is it, and then decide how important this is. You can press pause now and then press play when you're ready to continue to our third factor. Let's move on. Factor number 3 is individuals. Write that down on your card now. There were few, if any, significant medical individuals in Christian medieval Europe. Instead, the church and the universities they controlled taught physicians the work of ancient Greek Hippocrates and ancient Roman Galen. Sticking to these old ideas meant that there was little attempt to find new ideas or to make new scientific breakthroughs. However, during the time of the Crusades, Christians came into contact with the work of Islamic doctors like Ibn Sina, who they called Avicenna, and Al-Razi, who the Christians called Razis. These individuals introduced some new ideas, but even their work was largely based upon the work of the ancients like Galen and Hippocrates. Again, remember you'll want to make some notes. 3 important facts is really the minimum here. Do more if you can. Decide whether this represents change or continuity, whether it's progress or regress, and how important this factor is. Press pause and then you can press play when you're ready to continue. Our fourth factor is education. Add that to one of your cards now. Education was largely controlled by the church. What little local education there was tended to be in basic literacy, led by a priest. Others may have gone to a grammar school, again run by the church, to learn Latin grammar. The most educated, such as physicians, went to the church universities, such as Oxford and Cambridge. These focused their teaching on the ancients rather than finding new ideas. The church did not allow human dissection. Instead, the work of Galen was used without questioning its accuracy. So again, once you've pressed pause, you can write down your notes, decide whether this represents change or continuity, and how important this factor is. Done? All right, let's have a look at our last factor. Factor 5, attitudes. Add that to your final card. Medieval attitudes tended to be both conservative, which means wanting to preserve old ideas or respecting the way that things were done at the time, and superstitious, believing in religious or supernatural ideas. They respected and followed the teachings of the Bible and of the classical ancient civilizations, the Greeks and Romans especially. They believed the supernatural, like witchcraft, luck, and astrology. In the 14th century, astrology was a key part of medical training, and physicians used planetary movements and zodiac signs in their treatments. These were already ancient ideas. Okay, you can pause the video here, and once you're done, press play when you're ready to continue. So by now you should have got your facts down there, decide whether this represents change or continuity, and whether it represents progress or regress, and have decided how important this was. If you're done, here's what you could do next. As we come on to our final points, you could use your cards. One way of doing this is by making a second set of cards and then trying to write out the information from memory. You can flip over the card and see how much you got right and whether it's accurate. Another way is by handing them to someone else who can then quiz you on different aspects of what you've written down. Repetition is key here. The more times that you process this mentally, the more likely you are to build those strong connections within the brain and remember it. And that's really what you need to do. But in summary, how much change or continuity was there in medieval medicine? Well, when it comes to the church, there was continuity. The church actively discouraged seeking out new ideas and challenging the old. In government, there's limited progress. Governments made some improvements to basic hygiene and public health and reacted to catastrophes such as the Black Death. In terms of individual genius, well, there's very much continuity. Hippocrates and Galen continued to dominate medieval medicine, but there was some limited progress too. Through the Crusades, they brought back some Islamic knowledge to Europe, which would have been new. In terms of education, there's a big emphasis here on continuity. This was largely controlled by the church, and education focused on the ancient ideas. And lastly, attitudes. Again, this represents continuity. Religious and academically conservative ideas made it hard for new ideas to break through. So where would you place your mark on this now? Would it be on continuity or would it be on change? Well, looking at this screen, it would appear to be one of continuity. And where there is change, an awful lot of it might be slightly for the better, but actually would have very limited impact. So was there progress during the Middle Ages? Well, perhaps a bit, especially with government and with the use of individual genius, but very little overall. Thanks for watching this rapid revision video. I hope it's been useful for you and has served as a good summary for the medieval period's medicine in general. If it has been helpful, drop this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more of the same. But for now, goodbye and good health.